Hello everyone and welcome to the Paranormal Minds of JST's YouTube channel. My name is Tommy and welcome back to another episode of Paranormal History where we dig into the past to bring some paranormal facts from history to the future. So if you're into that type of thing, then hit the like button, share, subscribe, and comment down below. Let us know what you think. Hopefully we're doing a good job. And if you're not into that type of thing, then hello and welcome, because you probably got lost and somehow found this channel. Anyways, let's begin. Our story takes place in the brand new state, well, it was 10 years before the tale took place, of West Virginia, where a slain lady gets her own justice. Our story begins in October of 1896, when a young Elva Zona Hester, I really hope I'm pronouncing that right, I'm probably not, so I'm sorry, fell head over heels, and in some cases literally, for a young Smith. Well, I don't know his actual age, they didn't give it in the research, named Ermis. I believe that I'm pronouncing right. Forgive me on these names, they're very weird. Stribling Trout Shoe. Now, I know what you're thinking. Trout is a nickname, though I have lived in the South long enough to know that it's probably somebody's name. Well, they fell in love with each other and got married. You know, some would say it was love at first smithing. Well, marriage didn't last too long, because 3 months later, in January of 1897, Miss Shoe was found dead at the bottom of the stairs that led to their second floor of their log house. She was found by an 11-year-old boy who was known to do chores for the family, make a little extra money to help support his family. He was sent to the house by Mr. Shoe to see if Zona, everybody called her Zona because, well, I couldn't even figure out if I pronounced her name right, needed anything from the grocery store. Upon arrival, that's when the boy found Zona dead on the floor. He ran to his mom's house and told his mom about it, and then made his way to the blacksmith hut and told Mr. Shoe about it. Now, witnesses say that Mr. Shoe was very distraught over his wife's passing, and he beelined it to the house, where he found her on the floor, you know, dead. And he would position his hand, he pretty much was like just holding her neck in a way. He called for the doctor / coroner of the county, Dr. Nape, to come and, you know, help out. So Mr. Nape arrived, and he failed to resuscitate Zona. And upon failure of resuscitation, Mr. Shoe said no more examination was needed, and that they needed to prepare her for burial. Now, it's weird in of itself, but, you know, no one really questioned it. In fact, Dr. Knapp just chalked it up to she had what was called an everlasting faint. In other words, she had a heart attack. That right there is kind of weird in of itself, right? Well, anyways, Mr. Shoe took his own responsibilities, I guess, to dress the body. To dress her, he tied a scarf or veil around her neck and tied it into a bow and put her in a coffin, always being mindful of her head. Okay. Now, Mr. Shoe, or shall we call you Trout? Yes, sounds a little fishy to me that you're messing with her head a lot. You know. Sorry, dad jokes. So, he placed her in the casket, and he, like I said, he was very mindful of her head. Well, they took the casket to her mother on a hilltop. It was called Swallow Mountain. And, not Swallow Mountain, Swell Mountain. Swell, I guess is how you pronounce it. Again, weird names, West Virginia. Weird names. Now, Mary Jane Hessner, who was Miss Sue's, or Zona's mother, she was kind of like, what? My daughter's dead? Oh, that's weird. And she kind of had a feeling that Mr. Trout, I'm just going to call him Trout, had something to do with it. It's not believed that she knew that, well, Trout was married twice before, and he had spent 2 years in the penitentiary for stealing a horse. Now, funny thing, he was married twice before, as I mentioned. His first wife apparently died by breaking her neck when she fell off of a haystack. So, there's that. And his second wife died. Seems to be a running theme here. When she was supposedly helping him fix a chimney, and as she was loading rocks into the basket for him to lift up onto the roof to repair the chimney, the basket tipped over and one of the big rocks fell and landed on her head, which broke her neck. So something smells a little fishy here. Again, sorry, it's gonna be a running pun. I apologize. Anyways, back to the story. Mary Jane Hessner didn't like Trout at all, and believed he had something to do with her daughter's death. Especially since when he opened the casket, he would stay next to the head. Now, in the casket, he had placed a sheet on one side, and on the other side, he placed like clothes. His whole thing was saying, like, well, it would help her rest easier. Now, witnesses did report that when he, before they put her in the casket, her head seemed to be loose at the neck and would just flop from side to side. So I guess nobody said anything like, hey, why does it seem like your wife, who apparently died of a heart attack, head is all loose when the rest of her's stiff? But, whatever. Let's not argue. Let's not argue with semantics. Now, Mary Jane really thought that was suspicious. And, she couldn't get that out of her head. Well, they wound up burying Miss Sue, Zona, on the hilltop. And then after the funeral, for 4 days, according to Mary Jane, Zona would visit her at night. And she would tell her that Trout killed her. One story that she told, or at least a story that Mary Jane said she told, was he got upset at her over something, and he was so enraged that he snapped her neck, After 4 nights of visits, Mary Jane decided she was going to go to the prosecutor. Now, when she went to the prosecutor, she told the prosecutor that Zona visited her at night and told her about, her husband killing her. Now, the prosecutor was like, the ghost of your daughter told you that she was killed by her husband. Now, the prosecutor at first was kind of skeptical, but there was enough evidence dealing with the fact that he was constantly holding her head. He looked into his past, found that, he spent time in the penitentiary, and that, he had 2 other previous wives that were now dead and kind of seemingly had the same type of injuries. They called in Mr. Knapp, and he said he failed on the examination. And with enough evidence, they wound up exhuming the body. And upon re-examination, they found that her neck had been broken and pretty much snapped at the vertebrae. Now, that gave them enough evidence for them to take him to trial. Now, Trout was noted at saying, because at first he was against them exhuming the body, he was noted at saying, that's all right, they can exhume the body anyways, I don't care. After they told him, doesn't matter what he says, he was like, I don't care, they can exhume the body anyways. It's not like, they won't find evidence that will convict me. Well, upon examining her, like I said, they found that her neck was snapped. And then proceeded a grand jury and then a trial. Now, Mary Jane testified that her daughter did come visit her. Even though the prosecutor said it's not focused on the fact that your daughter visited you. You know, your daughter's spirit visiting you. That seems a little off. So let's not focus on that. She did testify to it. Now, the jury did find enough evidence to convict Mr. Shue of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. Though, let's be honest, it would have been more poetic if, they hung him and his neck snapped. But that's just me. They sentenced him to life in prison, and in the year 1900, he died of a epidemic that was running through the prison system. So, justice. There we go. The story of a ghost that solved her own murder. So, if you're into that, please, like I said, like, share, subscribe, and as always, tell us what you think down in the comments. And that's it.